Hi everyone, it's your book coach Liisa Kovala here. Grab a cup of coffee and settle in for a discussion about all things writerly. I'm the author of Sister's Winter War and Surviving Stutthof, my father's memories behind the death cave, and I'm an author accelerator, certified fiction, and memoir book coach. As a Finnish Canadian, I also love my coffee. In this podcast, we'll take a coffee break together to chat with authors, publishers, book coaches, marketers, agents, publicists, booksellers, and many others. Welcome to Women Writing. So happy you could join us for a coffee and a chat. Today, I'm chatting with Kerry Clare. She's the author of Asking for a Friend, Waiting for a Star to Fall, and Mitzi Bites. She's a National Magazine Award-nominated essayist, the editor of the M Word, Conversations About Motherhood, the editor of Canadian book website 49thshelf.com, and the host of Bookspo podcast. Hi, Kerry. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us on the Women Writing Podcast. I'm thrilled to have you. I feel like we met once briefly several years ago at the Wordsuck Literary Festival.
Yes.
And I think you may have had a book out at that time. Would it have been? I'm thinking it might have been Asking for a Friend. No, it was probably before that.
It was. Yeah, I think it was in 2022, perhaps. So it was just post-pandemic. I remember I was in Sudbury and there were lots of, calculations about wearing masks and eating.
Yes.
It sounds like a long time ago now.
Yeah.
So yes, it was my novel Waiting for a Star to Fall came out in
Yes.
2020 and I didn't get to go to anything. And then in 2022, I think it was, I got
Yeah.
to go, or maybe I don't remember,
I
but yes,
feel
I
like
got to go to
around then.
Sudbury and celebrate that book. And I had
Yeah.
a really wonderful event there. And then I met you and I read your novel after that. And yeah, it was,
Yeah.
after a long time of having no good times, that was a good time.
I know. We just needed to get out and it's just not the same having a festival online. It was just so
No,
nice to be with people again. And
it
I
was a
mean,
pleasure. And yeah,
we
nice
could
to meet
see that.
you.
Yeah, for sure. So I wanted to ask you what are you taking a coffee break from today? What kind of stuff is happening in
Sometimes
your
I
life?
feel like my whole life is a coffee break. Um,
Excellent.
I have a pretty nice life because like I spent this morning at my women's singing group. So I was like, coffee
Oh,
break. I
I
don't know.
love that. So
I'm
great.
currently working on edits for my next novel, which is
Right.
called Definitely Thriving, and it's coming out next year. And I'm in that really sweet spot where I'm working on a book that's under contract. And so
Yeah.
I have to sit down and imagine things because someone's paying me to do it. I
It's
mean, that's the
so great.
dream.
That is the dream, isn't
So
it?
that is what I'm working on right now. And then I'm going to singing groups and talking to you and
Nice.
doing other fun things in my
So
very
good.
nice life.
I love this so much. But I think you have a lot going on between writing and I know you do some editing and you work with writers sometimes and you edit 49th Shelf. So
I
for Canadians,
do.
we all know what 49th Shelf is. We're all avid readers. But for folks that are maybe not from Canada, what can you explain 49th Shelf to them?
I sure can. 49 Shelf is the largest collection of listings of Canadian books on the internet. I've been doing this job for such a long time. It started in 2010, 2011, and I came on board shortly after. And at that time, the challenge of specifying Canadian books as like metadata files,
Mm.
just so there was a listing where you could go on the internet to find all of them. It was really hard
Yeah.
because nothing was happening um, that was putting those books in a special category. And a special category was existing, but publishers weren't checking it. And over the years since then, we have thousands and thousands and thousands of books.
Yeah.
Every Canadian book, even out of print file, even out of print books are there. If it's Canadian, you'll find it there. And there are, in addition to the listings and links to where to buy them, there's also just con really great stuff that's interesting for readers. Um, we really like to think of writers as readers, and what they do on our site is they recommend books that they love. So we have recommended reading lists, and writers are expert readers. So these are awesome book lists if you want to get excited about Canadian books and if you want to get excited about thinking about what to read next. And also, if you want to have all your cliches about what CanLit is, if you want to have that shattered, go to 49shelf.com and see the wealth of material that's out there.
Oh, it's amazing. And it's always fun to see that list come out of what's coming up in the fall and, the most anticipated list. And, it keeps everything kind of
Yeah.
fresh and what to look forward to. So I think, yeah, Canadian folks know all about that 49 shelves because it's something we go back to time and again, and you can find so many gems there, right? So I just love that you're a part of that and that you've been there for such a long time. Really, you'd have such
I
a
feel so
wealth of
lucky.
knowledge. Yeah, getting to know those books and those authors and all of those things. Just such an incredible experience, I'm sure. Does that inform your own writing at
It is the
all?
best part-time job.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think being a reader informs my writing so much. I'm not one of those writers who can't be reading when they're writing. Like I have to be reading constantly.
right.
And so I think being a reader informs my approach to the job. And then yeah, it all comes back in my writing because I feel like in the most beautiful way, I'm influenced by everything I read. I feel like I'm writing literary coattails and,
Yeah,
thinking about how sentences work and how stories are approached. And I feel really lucky to be able to borrow from other writers
for
and put,
sure.
my own spin on things.
Yeah, such an important part of it, right? Is like you say, writers are readers, and that's informing our craft, but also I think is supporting other writers and the community of writers that we've created. And I always talk about it as writing as not being a competitive sport, right? Like we're kind of all pulling together
No.
and working towards our own
Well, and
individual goals.
reading, the stakes in reading are also really low, unlike writing. The writing career can be pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's tough, but reading's always there. And my favorite quotation is by the writer Caroline Adderson, and I always quote this. She probably said this once, and like I just won't shut up about it. Maybe she's,
Maybe she doesn't
but
remember
it
she said
was
it.
the yeah, I know. It was in a publication in like 2008. And it was the consolation for the disappointments of the writing life is to read. And I've always found that like no matter what else is going on, like I can get lost in a book. And that's why I want to do this in the first place. I want to be a part of it. And as a reader, we're all part of it. And so no matter what's going on in my writing life, my reading life can be thriving. And I'm very grateful that, that's always there.
I love that. That's a great quote. One of the things my mom always said when I was little was, if you have a good book, you're never lonely. And it's true, right?
It's
Like you
true.
always had that book with you and you could always just like fall into that story and kind of let the rest of the world go away for a little while and center yourself. And such an important part of our life. To be honest, I can't really understand people who don't read regularly. Like, why not? But I
Oh,
just figure they're readers who just don't know they're readers yet. They just haven't found the right book yet. Maybe they just haven't, you know, right?
exactly.
For sure, it's going to
But like, how do
happen.
you
They're
go
going to
to
find
bed if you don't read for half an
I
hour?
don't know. I don't understand that. Maybe that accounts for all the people who can't fall asleep well. Like that's good advice. Go read a book.
Yeah.
You'll just
And put your
relax.
phone far away.
That's right. Yeah. Pick up the book, put the phone away, and you will sleep better. So that's our advice for
Yeah.
message for everyone today. You know how it is.
Got it all figured out.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you remember early books that you loved? Like, was there something that you remember as being a book that maybe drew you towards writing, or just books that you
I
fell in love with
really
as a kid?
loved, I mean, I was very unique in that I liked Anne of Green Gables.
Me
The only Canadian kid,
too. They're all
right?
on my
We were all like that.
shelf, all of them. Yeah, I just love, and I've reread and reread all the series, like just
Yeah,
100%,
I love
right?
them.
I
So I
know.
read Anne of Green Gables when I was quite young, but even before I read it, I had like an abridged version in a coloring book,
Yeah.
and I ended up telling I had a great school librarian. One of the saddest things in the world is that the funding for school librarians is ever in decline.
Yeah.
And it's terrible. And we need to all talk to our political representatives and school
Right.
trustees. But my school librarian was named Mrs. Free, and she was amazing.
Mm.
And she ran a storytelling contest. And so I was 6 and had a terrible speech impediment.
Mm.
And I lisped all the time. But it was kind of cute because I was 6.
Yeah.
And I told this abridged version of Anne of Green Gables. And I won the prize for my class, and the prize was I got to be videotaped on VHS.
On
So, as a
VHS.
person who likes getting attention,
Yes.
it was
So
a big
great.
moment for me. But
Excellent.
also to learn to be a storyteller. And I think
Yes.
looking at, Anne of Green Gables, who was a storyteller, and understanding that, for those of us who talk too much, maybe there was a way we could use that talent. So that was an early influence for me. And then when I was a little bit older, I was given novels, like when I was a teenager, I remember reading Cat's Eye by Margaret Atwood
Oh, yes.
and The Stone Diaries by Carol
Yes.
Shields. And
Mhm.
I think I've been like sort of chasing themes in those books through my entire writing career. Like I want to hold the world the way those books hold the world.
Oh, beautiful. So, coming to themes, what are some of those thematic ideas that show up in your work that are maybe influenced by things you've read or just life experiences or whatever it is? I have this pet theory that we as writers return again and again to some of those ideas. My thought for myself is I'm trying to figure it out for me, so I put all these characters through it in different ways. So maybe other people don't recognize what I'm doing, but I'm like, okay, I need to understand this better on a deeper level. So I keep kind of exploring those things, and maybe subconsciously, I don't necessarily go out to try and do that. Do you find yourself doing that? Do you find yourself returning, or do you say, okay, I've covered that idea, moving on to the next thing, let that go?
No, I keep coming back to the same thing over and over. I like to look at two things that are opposites, but also true at the exact same time. And so, like, my first book was an anthology of motherhood. I didn't write it, but I wrote an essay in it. And I edited the book, and it was sort of looking at stories that on the surface seem very different. So, someone who has lost a child and someone who never wanted children. And so motherhood's
Yes.
full of that, these stories that seem like they're polar opposites, but I realize they sort of all have a similar through line, which maybe is just like being a person with a uterus.
Right.
But anyway, so I think, sort of putting polarized ideas together because that's what the world is, and seeing what actually happens, and that's life. So
Yeah.
that I think has been something I've been really interested in. What's it like to sort of reconcile unreconcilable things? And then I'm really interested in how to build a life. And that was why I thought of The Stone Diaries by Carol Shields,
Yeah.
because she sort of invents this. I mean, I guess we all invent characters in our books, but the early editions of this book, they don't anymore, but I have an old one and it has photos. She made up family
Hmm.
photos. She found them. Some of them are her family. And so it sort of blurs the line. Like, is this real? Is she
Yeah.
real? How do you make a life? How do you document a life? How do you decide whether a life is important or not? And these are all questions I keep returning to. And I think fiction can allow us to pose all kinds of interesting questions about what is true, and what is real, even though it's fiction. And so yeah, I'm very preoccupied with all of that and with um, motherhood and friendship. And I
Yes.
think I just find women really interesting.
Yes, absolutely. All the dynamics, the relationships, how people connect. I just love that idea.
Yeah.
Um, and Waiting for a Star to Fall. I remember I read that, love that book. Can you tell us a little bit about that one? Because I think that has
Yeah.
so many pretty contemporary themes. Like it really will resonate with folks.
Well, it does, but it doesn't. So I'm an expert on this book because I read it about 3 weeks ago. I did a book club, and the book was published 5 years ago, and so I had not read it for some time. And so I read it, and I've never read my own book before. Have you read your own books, Lisa?
Well, only like into the giraffe forms and
Yeah.
maybe short pieces for a reading or something like that. And often when I'm reading it to an audience, that little section, whatever, and I'm thinking, huh, I should have changed that word. I feel like editing it.
Yeah, I know that. But I've never picked up a book and sat down to read it like a reader does.
Oh,
And it was a really heartening experience because I think I like almost reflexively hate everything I did in the past because it just like is easier to like disown it rather than maybe take the chance that I was wrong or it was bad. Like
Right.
anyway, I need to be more fair with my former self. And I read this book and oh my gosh, I really liked it.
Oh,
It
I
was
love
it
that.
was really good. So it's a political novel. I wrote it in 2018, which was a very different time politically. It was a little bit more normal than the age we're in at this moment.
Yes.
And it sort of takes on youthful political idealism. It's from the perspective of a 23-year-old girl who has gotten very involved in politics. She's a woman, but that's the question. Is she a
Mhm.
girl? Is she a woman? Like
Yeah.
how responsible is she for her choices? She gets really into politics. She gets in a secret relationship with this up and coming political superstar. Nobody knows about it. Um, but she really feels for him and he's a lot older than she is. So this is a familiar story. We've seen it unfold in newspapers many times.
Mm.
And she really wants to justify her choices. And there are women around her who are saying that like she can't because she's too young and she
Yeah.
doesn't get it. And I think they're right. I'm 45 years old
Yeah.
and I look at choices I made when I was 23 and thought like
Right.
I knew everything and I'm like,
That's
you didn't
right.
know anything at all. But on the other hand, like what kind of feminism is it to look at another woman and be like, you don't know anything?
Right.
And so again, it's this irreconcilability that I was super interested in exploring. What's it like to be that woman?
Right.
And so I wrote that book. It was from her point of view. Initially, it was in first person. It was all in her
Oh,
head.
okay.
And she's wrong about a lot of things. And I got good advice from my agent who said, I think being in this character's head will be hard for readers.
Mm,
And they were right. She was right because, oh my gosh, there are readers who hate this character. They get really frustrated with her because
right.
I think watching people make bad choices is hard.
Yeah,
It's
it's hard.
so I made it in third person, and um, the thing about it that's different though is just how, yeah, the political scene is so
Yeah.
crazy right now.
Yeah. So crazy. But I love that idea. Like the idea that even now you hear all the time people are, looking for fodder about a political figure or something's done 30 years ago, 40 years ago. We changed, like we know better, we understand things better. Like those choices a 20 something year old is making versus us at a different time in our life. Yes, we can maybe judge that, but also put yourself back in that time period and how naive we were about some things and how uninformed or idealistic about things that we just didn't understand the consequences necessarily. Like I feel like we have to give each other grace
It's true.
sometimes.
And the other thing about it that the book does touch on is there's a scandal in the book that doesn't involve my main character, Brooke, but the man she's been involved in is accused of other things. And this was in the height of the Me Too moment.
Yeah.
And I I realized that while consent and power issues and all that, like it really, really matters to me. It matters to lots of people. But some of the people who were bringing up these stories didn't care at all. They
Right.
were using these women's trauma and their pain to, bring down a politician they
Yeah.
hate. And so I hated the fact that like the Me Too was so important,
Yeah.
but it was not treated very carefully. People thought it was, as you said, fodder for their own political outcomes, and that's super irresponsible. And it does, really awful things to people's lives.
Yeah.
Not
Absolutely.
necessarily the men. I'm not talking the men.
No,
I
but
think need to
yeah,
take
I think there's
responsibility for
ripple effect
themselves.
on families, on individuals, on
But I'm thinking about like a
everything.
woman whose youthful indiscretion gets who was an idiot, and then it
Yeah.
gets brought up, to for it has nothing to do with her at
Right.
all.
Yeah.
Um,
Absolutely.
I'm not, though, taking responsibility away from
Yes.
men. And the funny thing about the
Yes.
book is that I really employed some ambiguity. I
Yeah.
wanted to explore that gray area. And I think next time I publish a book, I need to like have notes being like, this is what I meant, because there were people who were really angry because they thought that the book was anti-feminist. And then there were people who were really happy because they thought the book was anti-feminist, and the book wasn't anti-feminist. And so
No, not
anyway,
at all. But it allows for so many conversations, which I think is interesting, right? That
yes.
people come to it with their own ideas, and then when they
And
read it, they
baggage.
like oh, for sure, like it. I love that because it's not like prescriptive. It's not saying like how to
Yeah.
be or what to think. It's allowing readers to explore those lives
But
and
readers
you
struggle
know
with that a little bit.
they
I
do. I
think
love
not being told what to know and what to think can like cause us a bit of panic.
That's true too. And how do you handle that then when you hear those kinds of messages? Like, I don't know if where you saw them like on a social media post or something like that. Like as an author, how do you handle that, and has that changed over the years?
It sure has. So with my first book, I was very in tune to what people were thinking, because I wanted confirmation that this thing I created was in the world, and I wanted to know what was going on. And now I don't engage at all.
Yeah.
And also it's really hard to know. It's funny because
Yeah.
it's counterintuitive because now there's just fewer outlets to know your book is being received, and so there's all the more impulse to like go on Goodreads and see what people are thinking. But
Yes.
Goodreads isn't for authors, and once I've written a book, like it's not my job to manage people's reading of it.
That's
And
true.
I've been
Yeah.
fairly successful at knowing that
Yeah.
because
You do. You have to release it. Like one, like it's yours, and then put it out in the world, and now it's theirs,
yeah,
and that's beyond our control. And now they can feel what they're going to feel about it. Like we know how we feel about it. We know what process we went through, and how much heart and soul we put into it, and it lands or it doesn't land for some readers, and that's I think that's okay. I think you just have to
I
be
think
okay
so
with that.
too. Yep.
Yeah, for sure. And did Mitzi Bites come out at the same time or around the same time?
Mitzi Bites came out in 2017. And
Oh,
so that
earlier.
was my first novel. And I wrote Asking for a Friend after it. And
Oh,
then I wrote Waiting for a Star to Fall very quickly.
yeah.
And um, because it was very timely. And so that novel actually ended up getting published first. And Asking for a Friend, like I really wrote it for years. All my other novels, I sat down and like wrote, in a few months. I wrote a first draft, and Asking for a Friend was I mean, it's a broader canvas. It takes place over decades. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So that's the latest one. And can you tell us a little bit about the premise behind this book? Because I think this is a
my new book.
yeah, the one that's asking for a friend that has more recently come out.
Sure. So Asking for a Friend is about two best friends. They meet when they're 19 and 21, and they meet in university in 1998, which is when I went to university. And, you know, it's sort of a soft way to be launched into the world. And so the book meets them at that moment. They meet due to, something is going on in one of their lives, and they connect at this very crucial point that was sort of by happenstance. And then they are connected, well, presumably for the rest of their lives, but the book follows them through the next 20 years. And I was just really interested in the way, and this was in my anthology as well, the way that motherhood kind of gives the illusion that women are having, parallel experiences, because, you might get married and you might decide to have children or not to. And but it's not parallel at all. Like it's just the possibilities are wildly divergent. And sometimes the trajectory of experience can bring two friends together when they're going through things that are complementary, and sometimes it can drive things apart. So as one woman becomes a mother and the other woman struggles to become a mother, they are pulled apart because, man, that's tough. Like everyone is just at such a vulnerable moment in their lives. And then the book sort of follows them back together again and through the years, and shows the way that friendship changes over time. And we have all these cultural rituals around romantic relationships, but we don't with friendships. And
Yeah.
I I think friendships are so fascinating, and I wanted to explore what that was all about.
Yeah, I love that you focused it on their friendship and the fact that we as humans, as women, often our female friendships are the central ones of our lives.
Yeah.
Like sometimes the marriage is perhaps if somebody is married, that might last for decades or not, right? But often those female friendships will continue long past other kinds of relationships women have with partners. So the fact that this is centered on them and the changes and shifts in their relationship as time passes, as it does.
Well, and friendship, like romantic relationships, like they end too. Like I've
Yes, that's
friends,
true.
and so there's a little bit of that in the book, and about the pain of that grief, and
Yes.
like what do you do with it and where do you go? So yeah.
Cool. I love that. So, can you give us some spoilers about your new book coming out?
Yes, my new book is called Definitely Thriving. And as we're recording this now, it was just announced this morning, though
I
I've
saw
known
that.
about
I was so excited.
I've been keeping the secret since October. And it's my fourth novel. And fourth novel, like just like it's probably less likely to be a fluke if they're letting me publish a fourth one. You know what I mean? Like that's
Do you
four
need to have
seems like a
published before you
lot.
decide? I love that.
I feel like
Oh,
at some point someone's gonna pop out and be like, no.
sorry.
But not yet, because I get so my next book is coming out next year. It is I really love the British novelist Barbara Pym. Do you
Okay.
know her work?
No, I don't. I'm gonna have to
She
look her up.
wrote in the mid-century. She wrote about spinsters. She never married. Her characters never marry. She has a big following among gay men and like
Yeah,
older women.
right.
And there's just a real charm to her work. And in the pandemic, I wanted to write something fun. And so this was the project I started writing. And I wrote about this woman who is a modern day Barbara Pym heroine. And what happens to her, unlike Barbara Pym's, she's married, she blows up her marriage. She does something a little scandalous and ends up coming back to Toronto, her hometown. And she moves in Barbara Pym, they all live in bedsits because it's in England. But
Okay.
she moves into a rooming house in Toronto and she decides to rebuild her life from scratch. And she's kind of like, as I said, made some mistakes. So she's like, I'm going to be a sensible woman. I'm going to be like a woman from a Barbara Pym novel. Barbara Pym's second novel is called Excellent Women. And it's about these sort of women who do all the admin work in the office and like do all the volunteering in the church and basically hold the world together and get no credit for it.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm going to be one of those sensible women. And she is not going to have romance or any of that. And of course, like, that doesn't quite transpire. But the romance she ends up having is a little unconventional. And she wants to sort of just be removed from everything and sort herself out. But it's impossible to be removed from everything because we live in the world and we have connections and we have people who love us and we have stupid things we do and she continues to do. And so she becomes very enmeshed in the community around her and shenanigans happen and it's really about community. And I think it came out of 2021 when we were all at home and I wanted to remember the people in my neighborhood and the people who give my life, so much meaning. And so it's a real tribute to that and to friendship. And I tried to write a rom-com. That's what it started off as, but I'm incapable of writing a rom-com. So it's
I
it's
believe
it's
you.
a different little book. But I love it so much and it's
Oh,
very
so
bookish.
great.
She gets a part-time job in a bookstore and yeah, I'm so excited to share it with
Oh,
everybody and I
so
hope that
fun.
it's enjoyed.
I'm sure it will be. I love that altogether. It's going to be great. So that's coming out in March, I think, not
Yep,
March of
in
next
one
year. So
year.
it feels like a long time, but not really. Those months fly by.
The publishing seasons are very rapid, aren't they?
Yeah, it really is. There's a section of time where you think it's taking forever, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's around the corner. Like it
It's
just
true,
it's
but this will be
crazy.
my fifth book. And the thing about it is, publishing a book, I think this is a pretty common experience. It's really like hard. It's really great in other ways, and it's
Yeah,
really gutting in other ways. And so this is
yeah,
like the best part because nothing's
yeah.
happened yet, and I can just be here. I'm
Just
not in a rush because I think,
cool.
the publication day and bringing the book into the world is super wonderful in all kinds of ways, but it's just it's it's so much. And
Yeah.
so I'm happy
So
to take my time.
yeah, absolutely. So from that perspective of knowing when it's coming out and you have sort of a lead up, is there something that you like for authors who might have their first book coming out or thinking forward to that, is there anything that you try to focus on to help get the word out? Like social media is so hard. Marketing's hard. How do you approach that? Like at what point do you start thinking, okay, I need to let people know this is happening, or is that a long lead
I
up or a
think
shorter
I
one?
think if you have a book coming out and you've never thought about that before, it might be too late.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing, right?
Speak to
Like
it.
I think you sort of have to be slowly creating the connection, the network,
Yeah.
um, based on other things
Yeah.
because if you just pop up suddenly and want everyone to buy your book, like
Yeah.
imagine that
Who
happened at
is
a
this?
party, right? People are like, who's this guy?
Who is this?
So I think maybe lean into what you're already doing is my advice. If don't go start don't go start TikTok because TikTok's a big deal. Like if I mean, if you're already doing it, keep doing it. But I don't think it's the time to pivot. I think it's the
Right.
time to lean into where you are
Yeah.
and use what you have.
Yeah. And most people have some kind of social media presence these days. There's very few people who don't have, like, there are a few people who are like not on anything, and that's fair, making those choices. But most people have some kind of platform that they're already on. And Yeah, I agree with you. It's it's sort of about that community again, that community of people connecting with people, and then when the time comes, you can let them know that something's happening, and
Yeah.
it's kind of doesn't feel salesy. It feels like you're sharing with people who care about it, and I think that's a nice mindset shift for people that it's not necessarily that marketing hat that has to
It's
all of a sudden
true.
come on.
And I mean, I'm not sure how much social media sells books anyway. So
I
to
don't think
think,
it does.
I don't think like it's hard to
I think
sell
it's hard.
books.
I think it
Um,
helps to let people know that there is something happening because,
yes.
there's kind of like I don't know how we get the word out any other way anymore, but you're right. I don't think it actually moves the needle on book sales. I
So
don't know.
I think whatever you're doing on social media, whatever I'm going to use the I, whatever I do on social media, it has to be serving me. It has to be something that inspires me. It has to be something that makes me feel good. Um, because I'm sure and I've met great people on social media, and maybe some of them will buy my book, but I'm not there to sell books because
No.
it doesn't work. So I have to find other ways to make the experience meaningful
Yeah.
and inspiring. I think there are ways that the things we do online can feed our writing practice.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
if the work you're doing online or the stuff you're doing isn't, like, you should stop doing it.
Yes, good advice. Well, and I think there's been many years of all of us just going from being afraid of being on social media to kind of full on in and then kind of like not knowing what to do there. And so we're all just trying different things and that's fair, right? Especially if you're starting out. But at the end of the day, if I totally agree. If you can find some joy there, if you can enjoy the experience of communicating with people, doing what you love, then it's all good. It's authentic. It feels good. But if it becomes kind of like a slog and work and you're resentful, you should
Yeah.
probably not be on there.
Well, and it's the performative nature. Like I really loved being on social media, and I've stepped back because I realized I was really spending a lot of time performing my life instead of being in it, and
Right.
I don't like that. So I have changed my habits a lot in the last year.
Yeah.
Um and that's the thing too, also. You can switch things around.
Yeah.
But also I think being on social media with like a real sense of curiosity about other people and what they're
Yes.
doing is meaningful,
Yeah.
and
I
other people are interesting. So
They are. I know everyone's lives seem so much more interesting. And I love to learn about what everyone else is doing in their writing practice and what they're struggling with because it just makes me feel like, oh yeah, I'm not alone.
well,
Okay.
and I also want to know what they're reading.
Yeah, I want to know what they're reading. Yeah, get book recommendations. I mean, all of those things are just so great. So, I mean, sometimes I bash social media a little bit, but I shouldn't because honestly, there's
Now you
always
can't.
positive. There's some positive things too. And I want to like I have pretty much got taken myself off of everything except for Instagram and Facebook, and I'm still lingering there because mostly because of, well, only because of the people, because of the
Yeah.
family, because of friends, because of writing community. And so every time I think, oh, I don't want to be on here anymore, I'm like, yeah, but so I haven't quite left those forms of social media yet. But the other things I'm like, oh, they're not giving me joy. So off they go. I'm not
Yeah.
doing them anymore. And it just feels like a relief. And you know what? No one's waiting for me over there, like on, I don't know, LinkedIn or something. They don't
I'm
care.
huge on LinkedIn. No, no, I'm not. What I have found though, I know what you mean, but I've also realized like, there are 700, I think I have 700 friends on Facebook, but like maybe I don't need seven, like that's
Right.
not actually a very, like my brain can't quite get around that. And so I'm much less on that platform.
Yeah.
And I've thought about like, oh, all the people I miss, but I've tried like going out of my house and like meeting people in my community. Um, and I'm like,
So
okay,
much
like
better.
maybe this is okay. Like maybe
This
like
is
being
better.
out with 8 people. I was at my singing group this morning,
Yes.
and like, so I'm trying to sort of fill the it's I wouldn't even call it a void. I
Yeah.
not going on Facebook and I don't care, but finding
Yeah.
these real world connections, especially with the
Yes.
world the way it is right now, is so meaningful and
So important.
sustaining.
Yeah, so important. I totally agree with you. And I think a lot of people are coming to that conclusion after all these years of swimming around social media and trying to figure it
Yep,
out. And now going like,
drowning.
oh yeah, maybe what we used to do is better. A little bit.
Yep.
It's all good. I wanted to ask you if you have a regular writing practice. Some folks like to write every day. I don't know how to do that. And I don't want to do that. But some people are really great at that, and I admire that. What do you write every day? Do you block your time? Like, how do you fit it into your life?
So I found my way to I've been writing since I was very small, but I found my way to writing success via blogging in the early 2010s. Or in like the like I started blogging in 2000 and my blog became sort of something real around 2006 and people started reading it. And the thing I learned from blogging is showing up every day and sitting down and doing a little bit of something. It adds up. And that taught me to write a novel eventually. It's
Okay.
a few years after that. So the lesson of just doing a little bit and watching it add up to something big
Yeah.
is the thing that blogging taught me. And so that's how I have written all my books. I have sat down with the goal of writing around 1,000 words.
Nice.
Um, and I just, get it done. I wrote my first book in a summer. My youngest daughter was a baby, and I wrote while she napped. And her sister was a little bit older, so it was mobile. And I would close the baby gate on my door and go outside and sit on my porch. And I just left my other child with a bucket of granola bars and a
Yeah.
movie. And I was like, I'll see you in an hour. And that's how I did it. And it was
Yeah.
great too, because when I finished my book and when I published my book, my daughter was 4 or 5, and she knew that she had played a big role in it
Oh,
because
I
she'd sort
love
of been there for it. And I
that.
think, I've never felt guilt about prioritizing my own time and creativity.
Yeah.
And I think, like I love when the people in my family prioritize their time and creativity and make things and I get to be part of that. Like it's a really, I think it's a generative thing, generous thing. So I've always done that. My kids are bigger now. They need like lots of granola bars in the bucket. But I and also I don't write all the time. So I am taking I have clients for manuscript consultations about 8 or 9 months of the year. And I also have my job with 40 Night Shelf. So when I have clients, I'm not writing because I don't have time. But when I have a month that's free or a couple of months, I will sit down and writing is the first thing I do. Because unlike now, the glorious moment when people are waiting for it, usually they aren't.
Yes.
Nobody is waiting on my writing. And so if I do all the work I have to do first and save writing for the end, it's so easy for it to fall off my to-do list. So I do it first and then I do the work I'm accountable for.
Mhm.
And I only usually spend like an hour and a half, 2 hours writing. Um, and it does add up to a whole book
Yeah,
eventually.
for sure. That's a great way of thinking of it too, that start during a year, there's different seasons of what you're focusing on,
Yeah.
and then I feel like that might be like you're full on in on client work and then you're full on in on your novel. Like it's less of a divided attention, but also it's like kind of I imagine I have never tried this, but I would imagine that when that time came to say work on the novel and be focused on that, it would be really like enjoyable because you've,
Yeah, it was
had some
exciting.
time
Although,
away.
yeah, no, it was exciting to get back in. And I find the like the manuscript evaluations I'm doing, consultations, I really like it and I learn a lot from it. I've done teaching before and I didn't like it very much. I didn't feel comfortable in it and it felt like a performance.
Right.
And so I don't know, I wasn't very good at it. But this role that I found working one-on-one with someone's manuscript is I have to articulate things about creativity and writing that I don't usually, and then I can bring that into my own practice. So
It's
it feeds me. It's good. I really like it.
Yeah, it's such a personal thing with folks too, right? That they're letting you in on this manuscript that maybe nobody else has seen, and you
Yeah.
have an opportunity to like give feedback on it. I
And get
just think that's
excited
so
about it.
special.
I
Oh,
love it.
so fun. I love this. Um, so, is there anything else that you wanted to chat about before we sign off here? I love that your book is coming out. Oh, I wanted to ask you one other thing because I'm a newbie at podcasting. I feel like
Me
I'm sort
too.
of in the I don't know, what are we, episode 20 maybe? So
That's a lot.
I'm getting there. I'm learning. Any advice? You came to podcasting how long ago? Last year, a year ago, 2 years ago?
Yeah, so I started my podcast. It's called Bookspo, and season 3 will be dropping near the end of April, right
Nice.
now, 2025. I started podcasting in a year ago. So this is the third season. I started in like March of 2024. When my last novel came out, I had a really hard time. The novel didn't sell, like it sold fine.
Mm.
Like it, but there were fewer venues for reviews, and it was discouraging. And what I didn't fully understand is that if your novels don't sell very well, by the time the third one comes out, the bookstore is not going to buy very many copies.
Mm.
Uh, so it was just, I felt like I had this idea of going up a ladder, right? This is my third
Yes.
book, but it felt like almost like the opposite. It felt like I'm proud of the book. I loved it. I got to do fun things. It was good, but I didn't come out of the experience feeling really great about myself. I just felt like not very successful. And so I took on some creative challenges to sort of get out of my rut, and podcasting was one of them.
Yeah.
And so I started podcasting, and the only thing that's everything I do is embarrassing, really. But the thing that's embarrassing about podcasting is like now I figured stuff out, and I think about, the first season when I didn't know anything. But I mean, podcasting, I think, is a lot like blogging, not technically speaking, but just like I don't know, I've been making it up as I go along, and that's maybe the only way I've ever done anything.
Right.
And that actually has been okay, and I've learned things, and
Yes.
getting to ask writers questions is
Yeah.
inspiring and it's fun. So yeah, it's been really good.
Any advice for me?
Keep learning things,
Keep
right?
learning
Like don't
things.
get set in how things should be. I think allow possibility and
Yeah.
space for change.
Love.
And because also you don't want to be bored, right?
No, and I mean, I've probably said this a million times. People have heard this from my lips, but like I'm at that stage in my life where I just want to do things that give me joy. I just do. I just like
Yeah.
why do why do all the things that are so. I mean, obviously, I have to do the laundry and the dishes, and da 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 da. But I mean, like, if you're gonna choose to do a podcast, you should be doing it because this is fun, or you're learning something, or it's putting you a little outside of your comfort zone. You're like, okay, let's try this. Like, I think writers should find like in their craft or in their new book or their whatever social media or whatever they're doing, Substack or whatever, look for places to just grow and try something and
Yeah.
see if it lands and how do you feel about it, and if you don't like it you don't have to do it, like you're not married to it.
Nope.
So try the things, and it's fun. Like that's what I'm learning, these things are fun, so it can bring a lot of joy. And if a couple people listen and say, oh, that resonated for me, or something Kerry said, that'll stick with me, or I'll think about that when, right, like that's great if folks pick up something, or get a good book recommendation or whatever it is, so it's well
I
worth
just
it
think
to
like
me.
making stuff is the way out of any rut. Like just
Yeah.
go make something and
Yeah. And I appreciate that you said having that book come out and not feeling like there was as many outlets as you would have liked. Like, I think we're not always aware of how things will go. Like, Canada is, I've heard this over and over again. There are very few places that do reviews anymore.
yeah.
And so there's this lack where, if any listeners are out there and want to review books, we need book reviewers. So there's just, there's opportunities, but sometimes it's hard to find. And, a lot of it is on us. Like, the publishers do some work for us, but a lot of it is on the author to
Yeah.
explore those things. And so it's the fact that you said, okay, well, I've done what I'm doing, but also let me see what else I can do that is going to be interesting for me and creative and fun. And I like, that's brilliant, right? Don't just sit back and go, oh, it's not quite what I hoped for or whatever.
Yeah, it helped me a
Move
lot.
on.
It was very good.
Yeah.
I
So,
guess I do want to say one more thing, which
yeah.
is that I think a lot of us and people starting out in writing spend a lot of time thinking about being writers and
Yeah.
like, when do I call myself a writer? And
Right.
it was in an Annie Dillard book, she talked about like a writer, like someone who fancies the look of themselves in a hat. Like we sort of, it's a, first of all, I think the solution to getting out of my rut after my book coming out was letting go of
Mhm.
writer being my identity so much and like my sense of self-worth, because that's just it's not a great gauge. Like
Yeah.
I had to find something else that was a little more reliable.
Yeah.
But also I think like you don't need to have an office and you don't need to have a special hat. Like you don't need all these things. And I the performance of writing is the least important part of
Yeah.
writing. Like
Yeah.
just do it.
I love that. That's everyone's permission slip right there. Just do
Hmm.
it. So good. Thank you, Carrie. I really appreciate you chatting with me today.
It was a
And
pleasure.
and I hope to see you again in real life.
That would be fabulous.
Thanks. Have a great day. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
If you're a writer who is struggling to find time to get your manuscript done, the Women Writing Mentorship Program could be for you. Embark on a transformative year-long journey and unlock your full storytelling potential. Imagine developing the foundational elements for your novel or memoir, completing a flexible roadmap, and drafting your entire manuscript. Picture the satisfaction of achieving your writing goals with unwavering support and encouragement every step of the way. Join a vibrant community of passionate writers who share your aspirations and dreams. The mentorship program includes a weekly 90-minute Zoom call, including a check-in, writing prompts, craft discussion, hot seat coaching, and group discussions, the completion of the Author Accelerator's blueprint for a book, completion of an inside outline for fiction or impact outline for memoir, a completed draft of your novel or memoir by the end of the year, support and encouragement to reach your goals, and a community of like-minded individuals with similar goals. By the end of the year, not only will you have completed the Author Accelerator's blueprint, but you will also have a fully developed outline culminating in a draft of your novel or memoir. Plus, optional personalized feedback on your pages is available for an additional fee. Bonus. Women Writing subscription will be offered to you complimentary. It includes inspiring author features, the Women Writing podcast, Book Coach Writes a Book newsletter with tips and strategies, and bi-weekly 90-minute writing sessions and the monthly Substack live chats. So the Women Writing Mentorship Program begins on May 1st, 2025. We meet on Sundays from 6:30 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Isn't it time to take the leap and make your writing dreams a reality? I'm here to support you. Let me know if you have any questions. You can contact me at lisabookcoach@gmail.com or check out details at lisakovalabookcoach.com. If you're interested in exploring your creativity in a safe and supportive environment of women writers, join us for a weekend getaway on the French River in beautiful Ontario from May 23rd to the 25th, 2025. Learn more at rekindlecreativity.com. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule to have a coffee break with us at Women Writing. Don't forget to subscribe to Women Writing on Substack. If you like this episode, share it with someone who needs a writing break and a little inspiration. Happy writing! Thank you to Michael Jensen for his original music and editing, and to Mia Jensen for the logo design.